All right, here we go on our second part of dividing with fractions. Now we are going to extend it to dividing with mixed numbers. So after this lesson, I will be able to divide with mixed numbers. All right, so the process when it comes to division with mixed numbers is exactly the same as the process from before. We still have to find that reciprocal, but now, oops, that was a little bit bigger than I intended. There we go. But now we have to look at that reciprocal, and we have to think about what's that going to look like when we have a mixed number. So in order to find the reciprocal of a mixed number, you have to turn it into an improper fraction first. Again, we need to also remember that what this fraction means is that I have two whole groups of 8, because 8 is the denominator and it tells us how many we need to make a whole group. And in this case I need 8, and I have two whole groups of those 8. So I have two whole groups of 8 with 7 pieces left over. All right, and this helps us when we're converting between mixed numbers and improper fractions. And I do want you to write that down for me, okay? And then what I also would like you to do is I would like you to practice turning this into an improper fraction. So two whole groups of 8. So two whole groups of 8. And that two whole groups of 8. So that of tells us that we're going to multiply. So I have two groups of 8 with 7 pieces left over. So plus another 7 pieces. So I have 16 pieces in just those two groups. I'm going to add the extra 7 pieces, and that's going to give me 23. And I'm still taking those 23 pieces and I'm putting them into groups of 8. Now to get the reciprocal of this, I flip it. So my reciprocal would be 8/23. All right, here I have 8 groups of 3 plus 1 left over. So I take my 8 and I multiply it by 3 because I have 8 groups of 3. And that tells me that I have 24 pieces plus that 1 that was left over and couldn't make it into a group. So that gives me 25 thirds because I'm still putting them in groups of 3. So that reciprocal is 3/25. All right, so let's take a look at what's happening when we are dividing with mixed numbers. So here I have my picture, and I left you a spot to draw in your own picture. Take your time. Don't just stop and draw in the picture. Listen to what's going on so the process is making sense. So Antoine is making sushi rolls. He has 2½ cups of rice and will use 1/4 cup of rice for each sushi roll. How many sushi rolls can he make? So he has 2½ cups. He'll use 1/4 cup for each sushi roll. So that for each tells us that we're going to divide. So let's look at what's happening. What we can do is we are going to look at how many fourths there are in 2½. So I drew out 2½. So here's 1, 2, and then 1/2. So then what I would need to do is I would need to cut that one whole into fourths. And I know that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 fourths that make a whole. So then there's going to be another 4 fourths to make my second whole. And then now I have to look at 1/2. Well, with 1/2, if I look at half of a whole, I know that there are 2 fourths in there. So I know that there are going to be 2 fourths inside of 1/2. Okay, so now that I've done that, now that I'm actually looking at what's going on, I can look and see, well, how many 1/4 sections was I able to make? So I got 4 out of 1 cup, another 4 out of 2 cups, so that's 8, and then another 2 out of 1/2 cup. So therefore, there are 10 groups of 1/4. Okay, so I was able to make 10 groups of 1/4 cup of rice. So Antoine can make 10 sushi rolls. All right, so again, it's the same process that we were going through before. where we're taking what we have and we're cutting it into what we want it to be. So we have 2.5 and we cut it into fourths to figure out how many there were. Alright, so steps for dividing with fractions and whole numbers. So I have 1 1/3 divided by 2 1/2. Make sure that you're not only filling out the steps, but that you're actually showing each step. Alright, so step number 1, convert any mixed numbers or whole numbers to improper fractions. So I have to take 1 1/3. I have one group of 3 plus the one that's left over, so that equals 4/3. And then I have 2 1/2. So I have 2 groups of 2. So that's 4 plus the 1 extra. So that's 5 halves. Okay, so here are my new mixed numbers. And now remember, the order is important. So you want to make sure that you know that 4/3 goes with 1 1/3 and that 5 halves goes with 2 1/2. Because you cannot rearrange that order. So now my steps become exactly the same as they were before. So now I have to find the reciprocal of the divisor. Remember, the divisor is always the number doing the dividing. So here, 2 1/2 is my divisor. So the reciprocal of my divisor would be 2/5. Okay, so there's step 1. Here's step 2. Step 3 is going to be to set up the problem as a multiplication problem and then to actually multiply. So again, keep the order the same, but I have to use those improper fractions. So now I have 4/3 and I'm going to multiply that by the reciprocal of 2/5. When I multiply, I get 8 over 15. And then my last step, of course, is to convert and simplify. And I want to add this little piece here, if needed. So in this case, 8 and 15 do not have any other common factor than 1. And it isn't improper, so my answer is indeed already simplified and is 8/15. Alright, so let's go ahead and give this a shot. You can work through this one with me, and there's a couple more problems that you can try on your own and check your answers as well. So again, step 1, convert them to improper fractions. So I have 3 groups of 2, which is 6, plus 1 extra, which is 7, so I have 7 halves. And I have 1 group of 3, so that's 3, plus 2 extra is 5, so I have 5/3, so I have 7 halves divided by 5/3. Find that reciprocal of the divisor, so that reciprocal is 3/5. My third step is going to be to set up this problem as multiplication and to actually multiply. So I get 21 over 10. And that fourth step is to convert. So in this case, I have 21 pieces and I have to put it in groups of 10. I can make 2 groups of 10. It'll use 20 pieces with 1 left over. So I will have 2 groups of 10 with 1 piece left over out of 10. Alright, so every time I don't have to show that I'm doing this step. Alright, what we can do, I just want to remind you that that is part of the process. So what we can do is convert them to mixed numbers, or to improper fractions. So I have 1 1/2. 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3, so I have 3 halves divided by 1 group of 4 is 4, plus 3 is 7, so divided by 7/4. And then I keep my dividend because I can't change what I start with, change division to multiplication, and flip 7/4 to its reciprocal of 4/7. And then I can multiply and I get 12/14. And then I know 12 and 14 can both be divided by 2. So divide by 2 over 2 and I get 6/7. Alright, so we have 2 problems here. Let's start with the first one. I want you to go ahead and try it on your own. You're going to pause, do the problem, and then come back and check your answer. So here I have 2 groups of 5, which is 10, plus my extra 2, which is 12, so I have 12/5. divided by, I have one group of 9, plus 1 left over is 10 ninths. So this becomes 12 fifths times 9 over 10. Because remember, anytime we divide, so dividing this is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, now I am going to do some cross simplification. If we look at 12 and 10, they both have a common factor of 2. So I can do 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. There is no other common factor than 1 for 5 and 9. So now I've simplified before I multiply. So I have 6 times 9 is 54 over 5 times 5 is 25. So my last step is to convert. I have 54 pieces, and I'm putting them into groups of 25. I can make 2 groups of 25. In doing so, I will use 50 pieces. 2 times 25 is 50. And in doing that, I will have 4 left. So I will have made 2 full groups of 25 with 4 pieces left out of 25. All right, so go ahead and try the second one on your own, and when you come back, we'll check your answers. So I'm going to do less explaining with this one, and I'm just going to go ahead and work through it. So here you should have gotten 15 fourths divided by 7 fifths, which would turn into 15 fourths times 5 over 7. And then I go ahead and multiply 15 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2 is 75. 4 times 7 is 28. Now I need to convert, so I have 28. Oops. Drew my long division symbol backwards here, so I'll try that again. So I have 28 in each group, and I have 75 to work with. I know that 28 times 2 is going to give me 56. Let's see if I can get any closer. So if I do 28 times 3, it's 24, carry the 2, that's 84. So 3 will be too much. So we're going to go with 2. 2 times 8 being 16, carry the 1, it's 56. So I'll make 2 groups of 28. I'll use 56 pieces. I'll subtract. I get 15 minus 6 is 9. 6 minus 5 is 1. So now I have made 2 whole groups. I have 19 left over out of 28. Alright, so the last thing that I would like you to do is I would like you to do these guided practice problems. Alright, make sure you're following through step by step. So here it's literally showing you that your first step is to make this improper. So here it's saying I have 4 times 4 is 16 plus 1, so this becomes 15 fourths. So then this is 15 fourths times 4 thirds. Okay, and then it's up to you. If you want to cross simplify, you can. So 4 and 4 are both divisible by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 15 and 3 are divisible by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So I would get 5 over 1, which is equal to 5. Alright, so that's what it's going to look like when you're doing your work. Please make sure that you show all of your work and that you complete all of the problems. And as always, if you have any questions, please be sure to write them down or email me so we can go over them in class.